Awesome. All right. Well, let's jump in. Like I said before, this is our monthly Professionally Evil Lunch and Learn. The goal of this is not to have a bunch of slides. It's not to sell you anything. It's not to, promote, whatever products we have. It's just an opportunity to, rant about current events, topics, whatever. Honestly, the idea where this started, some of us were sitting around having some beers at a conference and we're like, we should record this. And I said, yes, we should. And we should do it often. So the goal here is just to chat and rant. And, I always say if you get 3 security experts in a room, you'll get about 12 opinions on just about anything. So that's the goal for today. Yep. So with me today, I've got Jason Wood, a threat researcher from CrowdStrike, formerly part of the Professionally Evil team at Secure Ideas, but he moved on to bigger, maybe not better things, but doing awesome stuff. Different things. Absolutely. And then we got Tim Medin. What is your title, Tim? Are you chief something or other at Red Siege?
Yeah, CEO or something. I feel bad saying it. People are like, oh, well, we can mute that guy.
I was going to say, is there anybody technical there that we could get instead?
Right?
Maybe just...
clearly not, right? Like, seriously.
I told everybody while you were trying to get in that you don't do a lot of speaking and, tech stuff is not really your thing. So no, Red Siege is a great company. I tell people all the time, there's a handful of companies that like, if we have a customer that wants to change around and go with somebody else and they go to one of these other companies, Black Hills, Red Siege, Trusted Sec, stuff like that. I don't mind losing those jobs, right? It's the jobs where it's like, yeah, we're going with, our audit company tacked on security services. And so we're going with them.
That's funny. It's funny you say that because we literally had one yesterday come back like, hey, we went with Secure Ideas. I'm like, all right, cool.
Yeah.
Sweet. I don't feel bad.
Yeah. So two things of housekeeping. One, if you want to chat, if you got questions, things we should talk about, or you just tell us we're stupid, you can throw that in the chat. You can also join the Professionally Evil Slack channel. Just go to professionallyevil.com. You can get a free invite there. And that's there all the time. You can send us stuff, whatever. The other thing that I wanted to mention, I talked about it briefly before, Kevin and I are doing a Professionally Evil Perspective podcast every other week. I'm going to take the audio from this and include that in that podcast feed as well. Hopefully that'll drive some more interest and we'll get some more folks as well. But with that, let's jump in. Here's our format. This is what we do. We've got a bunch of articles about current events, things that are going on in the security world. I threw some of them together as just topic, ideas of starters and whatnot. So I'll throw those out. We'll talk about it, see how long it goes. Sometimes some months we spend 30, 40 minutes on one or two topics. Some months we jump through them quickly. There is no plan, but we'll figure it out. So were there any that you guys just like, hey, I really want to talk about this thing, or any like huge?
There's one, but it only needs to be done for like 30 seconds tops. There's a liquor store with a limited stock since Christmas because of the cyber attack. It has nothing to do with cold weather and a pandemic. Finn.
Yeah. So here's the link. I just posted the link in chat. Yeah. What was it? The Saskatchewan Liquor Authority was attacked. And because of that, like the entire, all the liquor stores in Canada are struggling to keep up.
Canada goes dry.
Yeah.
Is there a drink about that?
It's January
Canadian dry.
in Canada, folks. There's not much else to do. Like, you got the hockey, but then you got to come inside and drink. I mean,
yeah.
Not buying it.
So it's funny because this month, as I was looking through articles, there's a lot. U.S. government's doing this. U.S. government says this. The government does this. And then this one about Canadian government stuff. And honestly, partly I wanted to throw that in there because I know I wanted to tell the story about Jason one time. We were at DerbyCon and we were having a little event with Secure Ideas. And Jason was the only principal with, I think we all had credit cards, but you were the principal at the time. And we went
Yeah, I don't know how I got elected, but I was the one with the AMX handy, company AMX.
So we bought this grocery cart full of liquor. And I mean, it was several $100s worth of alcohol. And Jason, I don't think had ever purchased alcohol in his life before. And so he's the one that had to, message his wife. It's like, I just bought, my first time buying alcohol and I had to buy like several $100s.
Shopping cart full. Yeah. I mean, don't drink.
Yeah.
Little Mormon boy out here. Yeah. I'd like to buy all this booze. Here you go, guys.
That was awesome. Yeah. Secure Ideas corrupting employees since
it was
2010.
Hilarious.
Awesome. So, all right. So we'll skip over that one, but I thought that was hilarious too. Jason, were there any others? Any that you were like, man, I really want to talk about that, or you want to just go down the list?
We could just go down the list. The
Well,
cat
yeah,
is
but sort of
obviously
related to
decided
that
to join.
I had a sort of logical step in. So we talked about Canada,
Yeah.
right? The Ukraine one I found interesting, right? Because we've seen time and time again where the bad guys are trying to monetize to some degree. And this sort of is a throwback to let's just nuke stuff and go on, right? I mean, granted, if it's nation state level, that's might be what you want to do. And we saw that with NotPetya too.
Yeah.
But I found that interesting in that it's different, right? We're seeing like these things locked, but you can mostly get it unlocked, whatever. But this was just we're just going to burn the whole thing to the ground. I found that fascinating.
Yeah. For summary, this malware is spreading throughout Ukraine. It's clearly targeted on Ukraine. In fact, I think it was targeted. I think if I read the article, it was targeted on like government or like it wasn't just anybody in Ukraine. It was like focused on certain types of organizations. And rather than ransom or anything, it just nuked hard drives. It just wiped out everything.
There goes your MBR and
we're
done.
My thought on this, like everybody's always said, what will cyber war look like? What's cyber war going to look like? What's offensive cyber war and defensive cyber war and blah, blah, blah. To me, like, I think this is cyber war, right? We know Russia is lining up, like Putin's getting ready to take the country. I think everybody kind of agrees that that's going to happen at some point. We clearly, we don't have proof that this is Russia yet, but I don't know. Do you disagree?
I don't know. I mean, it could be. I don't know. I don't know what it is. I think it's fascinating because I recently listened to. Actually, I listened to it with my son when we were traveling. Darknet Diaries episode 54, where they talked about NotPetya, where it was sort of similar to this. It's interesting to see this again. By the way, highly recommend listening to that. It almost took off the one of the top shipping companies in the entire world, top 1, 2, or 3.
Yeah,
they literally had one domain controller left because there happened to be a power outage in Kenya during the time, or else their entire company would have been completely, totally destroyed. And I just spilled coffee all over my desk.
You're a mess today, Tim. Man, that's awesome.
Oh, so my wife's out of the country, and I was supposed to have a babysitter here this morning. She has strep throat. So I've done 3 client calls and an interview with a 2-year-old.
Oh, man. Nice.
Anyways, you keep talking. I'm going to get a towel.
Never leave home without your towel, right? Like that's.
I just filled it up too.
Yeah. And he's gone. What do you think? What do you think about this? What do you think about the cyber war thing, Jason? Like to me, this is what cyber war looks like, right? Like you build potential attack scenarios. Like here's the types of things we could do potentially. And then when it's time, when someone says go, like traditional kinetic war, our attack scenarios, we're going to go kill this person. We're going to go, storm this city or whatever. Like you can't guarantee the same type of thing in cyber, right? You can say, here's the capabilities we have, and we could try to do some certain things here, but it's kind of more like winding it up, throw it, and let's see what happens.
Well, I mean, so you got a couple things here. I've heard arguments about it, like, there's no cyber war because you can't take and hold ground with it and yada, yada, yada. And it's like, okay, you're right. You can't take over the land of a country with electronic attacks. But we can degrade communications. We can degrade infrastructure services. I mean, that's what we saw with, Georgia, not the state, being attacked by Russia. They went under a huge cyber attack. We saw this stuff happen during Ukraine. Thank you for NotPetya. And what it does, it just degrades their communications, their abilities to basically fight the kinetic war, and distracts all kinds of things at home, makes things really uncomfortable. And, so you could look at it and say, okay, well, I mean, this is just a component of it. And to just grade whether or not something is warfare based on, tanks rolling across a field, it's like, well, yeah, then logistics isn't warfare.
Right.
But if you don't have logistics, you don't have a war. I mean, you're done. So yeah, to me, this is just another aspect of it. The obviously the Russians are happy to make use of it. I'm sure if we got into much of a conflict, the United States would be happy to make use of it. And in fact, I've read an article. This was the Air Force, United States Air Force, was talking about, this the cyber aspect of things and saying, well, if we can disrupt things enough that we prevent airplanes from being able to take off, that's a win.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
So yeah, there you go. It's a piece of it. But are we going to have a war where that's all that happens and that results in taking over ground? Or I doubt that.
Yeah, no, I see it sort of like, people talk about criminals using technology, websites, phishing, all that kind of stuff. And they're like, sophisticated attackers. And a lot of times they're just the scam artists that have been around for 1,000 years that are just using the next tool, right? Like just because someone is using the tool doesn't necessarily make them a hacker. They used the phone 20 years ago because it was available. They wrote letters 20 years before that because that was a thing. I don't know, that's a bad analogy, but you know what I mean? Like
I've seen e-crime intrusions where they are absolutely using malicious tools to try and do ransomware. They're obviously not a hacker because they click this tool, and if it works, great. If it doesn't work, they move on to the next tool. If it works, great, and it doesn't work, they move on to the next tool. And they finally hit the ransomware, and if something prevents it, they go, all right, well, I'm out.
I've heard of instant responders. Like the bad guys will RDP in, and they'll literally from the system they're on Google how to use tools and watch YouTube videos on how to use stuff. They'll copy files over, try to run it. Like that doesn't work. Let me turn stuff off. Instead of turning the defensive things off first, they're like, yeah, let's just YOLO this thing. But it works, right? Like they're surviving. There's no need for them to evolve because it bloody works.
Yeah, it works enough that we don't have to get any better about, this one didn't work, I'll move on to the next one on my list, and that one worked. So cool.
Yeah. I had some friends. I was in Florida last week for a conference, and some folks were going to Jamaica, and so they were talking about all the beach people on the selling stuff along the beach to tourists, and this one lady was talking about these guys that would come up to her, and he's like, "Oh, pretty lady," and trying to sell her all this stuff, and like the tactics they were using were extremely off-putting, and she was just like, that's absurd. And I said, yeah, but think about it. Like they're only doing that because it works, right? Like it may not work on you, but it works on some percentage of those people because they're not starving out there. They would go find something else to do if it didn't work. So I think that's just human nature.
Yeah.
All right, let's move on. So this one about the White House talking about zero trust, the zero trust memo. I think this was from the Office of Management and Budget, right? OMB. Did you guys have you guys? This just came out like 2 days ago, so I didn't know if you had a chance to look at it or not.
I read through it real quick.
I think is this the same one where the government is saying no more complexity requirements for passwords and stop doing rotation? I think no. Either the same. It was just either the same time frame, or maybe it's the same doc, or maybe it's not. I forget. So,
no, I don't think so. I think, well, I mean, part of what you're talking about was related to the NIST guidance from.
No. There was new guidance from the White House this past week where they said stop requiring complexity, and I need to find Lance Spitzner, who does a bunch with the Security the Human, just tweeted that earlier this week, and I think it's the same doc. I need to double check.
Yeah, I'm scrolling through that. I don't remember reading through it on my first pass. It's a fairly long document. So what's 30 pages?
Here it is. Yeah, Tim's right. Password policies must not require the use of special characters or regular rotation.
Yeah.
It's on page 5, fourth bullet under number 2. But you need to have multi-factor authentication.
Sure.
They're
requiring other things for authentication steps.
So I'm that pisses me off. I'm going to share. Here's a blog post I wrote in 2018, specifically about this. If you guys remember back in 2018, NIST updated their guidance saying all those things. You shouldn't have to rotate passwords. You shouldn't have to have complexity. Right. 8 characters is enough, blah, 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 all this stuff. But if you go through and look at it, it also says you have to have multi-factor authentication. You have to prevent common passwords from being used. Like they list a whole bunch of controls that aren't actually possible in Microsoft Windows or OS X or Linux. And in fact, at the very bottom in one of the appendices, it says if it's possible to capture hashes and break the hashes, the controls need to be an order of magnitude harder than otherwise. So they're basically saying that 800-63B, that guidance is designed for applications of the future, right? Like if you're building a new application with a new, all web-based, and you can add in all these extra controls, here's the way it needs to work for government stuff. What pisses me off is when people take that and say, okay, this needs to apply, the same guidance needs to apply to my Windows domain network.
Which is going to store password hashes.
I mean, I get what you're saying, but how many times have you gotten in with winter 2021 or the season of year, right? And that is literally because of a rotation policy, without a doubt.
Oh, I agree. There's definitely a problem. What I'm saying is applying that NIST guidance wholesale to everything is not what it was designed for.
Yeah, no, I get that. I mean, and the counterpoint to the point I just made is like, how many times have you seen a password used on site be the breach passwords, right? Password reuse. And the password reuse breaks the getting rid of rotation and not necessarily the complexity requirements, but the rotation piece. If you have no reuse, rotation policy is to some degree not useful and can be counterproductive. But if you have the reuse, I mean, it's still, it's a weird paradox, if you will.
Yeah. I'm a big fan of killing passwords everywhere you can. There's no reason that we need to have every single application doing its own authentication, right? Like I trust a couple of providers to authenticate me. I don't want you storing another password and trying to do it yourself.
Yeah, but to some degree, I don't care. I mean, I've got a password manager, so I don't care, right? It's a 15-character random thing that I will never look at ever again in my life, and I don't need. Right. I mean, for business, it's different, right? I actually like it if things are tied to the corporate account.
Sure.
Because we terminate that account and you lose access to everything. I think that's great.
Yeah.
Right?
But I think
personally, I don't want Google or Facebook or whoever to know that I'm logging into literally anything because they get intel out of that, right? They don't need to know that.
So you want LastPass to know instead?
Well, no. I mean, we use 1Password. It's stored locally. They don't have the stuff, but
as far as you know,
I mean,
yeah, I know.
I've done research into it.
Let me go get my tinfoil hat.
They don't know I'm clicking on the thing. They don't know when I'm authenticating and stuff like that. They have the domain name is stored in clear text, so they know what I have in my vault. Everybody does technically or whatever. It's just I don't hit them every single time for authentication. They're not getting that. But again, for business, I think it totally makes sense because I have one account to authenticate, one to alert on. I can actually alert too.
Yeah. So the focus of this, we kind of got stuck on the password side of things, but the focus of this memo is about zero trust, right? Which businesses, enterprises have been moving that direction for a while. I think that's where the future is going, is the whole concept of zero trust, which that has a lot of components.
And the zero trust thing it's become a buzzword. It's like, we're zero trust.
Oh yeah.
What does it actually mean to you? It's like, well, all our people work from home. Like, well, is that zero trust, or does it mean you don't have a domain?
Well, right. Even if you get a zero trust platform, you start rolling it out through your environment. Did you set it up right in the first place? Are you maintaining it? Are you keeping all of the patches on it? Oh, look, we've got a vulnerability in it, and the threat actors are using it. So, my thought reading this was like, okay, so we have the new silver bullet that we're going to use to make all of this stuff go away, and it'll change some of the problems.
Yeah,
but that'll be about it. I mean, I guess what the idea behind zero trust is, we get in, we pop a system, and now we can't run amok throughout a Windows domain because we've got a domain creds that allows us to do whatever the heck we want.
To some degree, and actually, let me come back to that. I wanted to point out something you said about kind of the structure of the document. I was really impressed how well they thought. Like they mentioned CISA's 5 pillars. What was it here? Identity, devices, networks, applications, and data. And then this document goes through and considers zero trust, the model and principles to each one of those. I think it's a good read if folks haven't read it. But to your point about Microsoft Windows, I've always said that using a Windows domain is a vulnerability. right? It's not something that we put in a report and say, oh, you're using a domain, whatever. But you are choosing to lower the security of your network by allowing, hey, I authenticate once on this system, and now I'm trusted on every other system, right? Like you are inherently weakening security a little bit.
I mean, I get it, but how many passwords can you have people feasibly use before it breaks?
I agree. I'm not saying there's a better, it's Kevin and I were talking the other day. It's sort of like capitalism. It sucks, but it's better than everything else that's out there. Right. Like, you know what I mean? I'm not saying that, hey, we should wholesale drop Windows, but I am questioning here. Can you really have a zero trust model if you have a Windows domain where every Windows system trusts another one?
I mean, trust is a difficult word there. Like, I know who you are, but you can't. Can you access me is a whole different thing.
Yeah.
Right. So I mean, I think the trust might be the wrong word. Like a shared identity to some degree. Like, I mean, ideally, you get your host locked down so they can't access. But even if the C dollar sign is shared, rando user can't access C dollar sign. So whoop de friggin' do. I mean, I get what you're saying though.
They use strong protocols like Kerberos and whatnot to.
Yeah.
Ed said, how many clients are actually moving away from using AD? I don't. Not many.
No. And if they are, that's Azure AD.
Yeah, exactly. Which maybe that's not a bad, it's a little bit different of using that federated cloud provider.
Well, I think one of the nice things, and I don't want to just pick on Microsoft because it's going to be Google's identity management, whoever's identity management. They all have the same sort of issue where, and it's a benefit, but it's a curse. I can use a single credential to log in, which means you breach that credential, you can still everywhere. The nice thing with the cloud identity is good freaking luck owning the domain controller in that scenario, right? I mean, right now, if an internal network, you own the DC, you get all the hashes, and it's absolute go time.
Yeah.
Good luck getting the Microsoft one. And even if you do get in, the hashes are stored significantly more secure. Yeah. So cracking is going to be an absolute nightmare. But again, getting into that thing is going to be drastically different.
Yeah, I mean, there's just so many. There's particularly with if you think about it, like to your point about owning the domain controllers, you've got all of the attack surface of a Windows server, basically. And if you use something like Azure, you've got the service call.
Right.
There's no RDP into the host. You're not going to get in via C dollar sign. You're not going to use PSExec to execute something on the underlying host.
Well, and then some of the other stuff with the like let's talk Azure, but they've got like the conditional access policy. Whereas with traditional Windows, like you're in or you're not. Like there's no in between, right? And with like the online stuff, you're like you're in, but you're coming in funky. Let's do a little bit of an extra check to make sure.
Yeah.
Right. And you can configure that too. Like, hey, you are absolutely under no circumstances coming in from China.
Right.
Right. Whereas Windows is like, fair enough.
Okay. Yeah.
Right.
unless
I recognize that password hash, that token. Let's go for it.
Yeah. And I think going back to the 800-63B guidance from NIST, that's what it's meant for. Like that type of.
What did the 2-year-old do?
That's 2-year-old. Do you smell smoke? That's awesome.
I got a notification he's trying to enter the pin on our Nintendo Switch, which I didn't know he had the Switch. Now I do. Oh, God.
So the question, wait, do you get a notification if it's successful or just when it fails?
Both.
Okay, good. Because I always tell people, like, look, 1,000 failed login attempts is bad. 1,000 failed login attempts followed by one good one is really bad. All right,
actually,
let's move on.
1,000 failed isn't bad. That's exactly what you want.
No, well, but that means you're under attack. That's an incident you need to respond to. You need to say, hey, what's going on? Is there an issue here?
It depends. External facing, it's a waste of time.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, it depends on what it is. You're right. I was thinking internal.
A little different, right? Like, why is this happening?
Somebody's doing a brute force attack from an internal IP address. Why?
Yeah.
But even external, I would say, I mean, again, it's going to depend on the environment, the organization, whatnot. But if you're seeing specific attacks coming from a specific IP or a group of IPs, it's still worth investigating to say what's going on. Are they performing other attacks? Do I need to watch more carefully? You know what I mean? Like that's notification that something.
I mean, yes
is
and no,
happening.
but there's this single easiest thing to change in my attack is my source of address. So tying it back to that,
easiest, but I know what you mean.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, let's move on. So the next one I was going to pull up, I kind of feel like this is another joke, but it's not. Senators introduce a bill to protect satellites from getting hacked. It's Gizmodo, so take it for what it is. And it's U.S. senators, so I guess take it for what it is. Should we be concerned about our satellites getting hacked?
I mean, as long as you don't screw up my DirecTV.
Yeah. Here's the problem I have with legislation like this. Is it necessary? Like, does the CFAA no longer cover satellites in space?
It's out of their jurisdiction, but it might trip over interstate commerce. I don't know.
That's true. That's true.
State. The thing that I'm sitting there thinking about, okay, you passed this law. Okay, all satellites need to do this. All right, who the hell are we sending up there to go patch that system?
Yeah, exactly. Sorry, we got to shoot that one down and send another one up. Because
I mean, somebody burned that one up on re-entry and we'll launch another one. It'll only cost however many millions of dollars.
Yeah.
To Eric's point in the chat, like, don't screw up my GPS. I literally cannot get across the town I live in of 80,000 people without GPS because none of the roads are straight. I'd be screwed.
Yeah, I've been there. I know what you're talking about.
You guys need to have mountains around you or something like that. At least gives you a point of reference.
Right. Tulsa's nice. Everything is straight north, south, east, west. Like every mile is a
Wisconsin.
Is a grid
it's
road.
Every single road is a grid. Like I can 3 blocks over, one up.
Yep. So my thought on this, well, I don't know. Like I feel like a lot of times this stuff is just, hey, here's this thing nobody's looking at. We need to pass some regulation or law to make sure that they're putting effort into it. But I don't know. It seems like a waste of time to me with that kind of stuff.
Speaking of,
it's a lot of
Florida the Deepfake ban.
Yeah, that was another one. I mean, it's the same thing. This one for the satellites, voluntary cybersecurity recommendations for private sector. Okay, we opt out. The Deepfake ban.
Right.
Okay, if you get caught, it's another law we'll throw at you.
Here's another one. Florida considers a deepfake ban. Here's what's going to happen. It's the whole criminal or trying to ban guns and then criminals are the only ones that have them. Right? It's saying, hey, we're going to ban deepfake so that normal people who aren't malicious can't change their face to Iron Man and put themselves inside of a Marvel movie on their phone. But that's not going to stop someone from, doing something more malicious.
And you know what? This is kind of obnoxious. It was absolutely hilarious when I did a deep fake of my dad singing YMCA.
Yeah.
There's one of these services. I uploaded a picture of him to it and got him singing that and sent it out to everybody on Facebook.
Oh, Eric.
Does that make me a felon or what?
Eric in chat said if they deepfake ban, should they also ban Botox and lip injections in Hollywood? Which the Fast and the Furious movie, which one was it where Paul died and they put him back in for the next movie? Like they finished the movie? You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
We're talking about Star Wars. We did that last. That terrible one. That was so bad.
Yeah, they Luke Skywalker, right? They brought him.
No.
No. Yeah. Okay, so both. You're talking about.
There was that too. Yeah, that's a good point. The younger version.
They did it with Luke. They made him look like he did in the 70s or whatever. Like they made a young version of Luke that was horrible. But
yeah, to Tim's point, you had Princess Leia. Carrie Fisher passes away. We still got a third movie to do. All right. Well, how are we gonna do this?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, in that case, because there's specific things. Just reading quickly through the article, like this is specific for lewd content. I mean, when you sign the contracts, if you ever look at those contracts, it's amazing. Like they get your likeness in perpetuity to use in. It literally says something like all universes. Like there's weird things like if we can figure out how to jump through if there's multiple dimensions and happening at the same time, we can use it in all of them. Like the lawyer sat down and
just in case we figure this out, we'll pause
all
it
worlds
in
and all universe. Yeah. It's crazy what they put.
I used to have to deal with reviewing contracts, and because I was the security guy at the company, and so somebody decided, that means lawyer, right? So we'll toss it over to him with the legal review. And some of the stuff that I saw in contracts for like legitimate business type of contracts and stuff like that was amazing, because the attorneys were doing just that. I don't know, let's throw it in there and see what, if we can get away with it. And in the case of these terms of service, how many of you scroll through on your mobile device?
Oh yeah.
It
pisses me off when you have to scroll to the bottom before you can click accept.
Oh, yes.
Just let me click accept. I'm not going to read it anyway. And you can't prove that I read it because I scrolled to the bottom. Like, that's nobody in court's going to believe.
Well, what's funny too is I've actually, if I'm really feeling really snarky, like sometimes the JavaScript will make you click the button. I'm like, we're going to go to inspector. We're going to re-enable that button, and we're going to click it without the checkbox. Because there's no form validation. It's just JavaScript on the checkbox that enables the button. And I'm like, enable, go.
I would love to be on a jury in a situation like that where somebody comes up and says, oh, no, he clearly had to click the button. I would love to be like, nope, let me show you. That's not possible, or that's not required. Yeah. All right. So here's another one. Talking about government stuff. We talked about Canada and the Ukraine and the US. Sweden launches a psychological defense agency to counter disinformation.
So I looked at this and I went, good. I mean, because it wasn't a bit, okay. It will have a staff of 45 people.
Yeah.
Okay. Go stop the tide.
Basically, they're gonna start their own Snopes. It sounds like.
The funny thing is, you look at we all have them. We've got family members and friends who will share anything that pushes whatever their button is.
Yeah.
And I've had debates with a relative where I'm like, look, I read the article, or I listened to what somebody said, and here's what was right here and stuff like that. And you get well, I've never seen that. And they just fight on with what they're doing. It's like, dude, it fits their bias and their, what they want to hear. It's got the emotional response. Yeah. There you go. Good luck stopping that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, to your point, like, I see the value, especially coming from a, maybe more left-leaning social government, of saying we are going to protect people. Like, we have to do something because people are being attacked. Like, I get that, right? My sign over here, Jim commented on it, Save Us FTC. That was from the podcast that Kevin and I did yesterday about, the FTC, Log4j response, whatnot. Like, there is a point where the government's job is to protect consumers, right? Like we see value in that, but trying to figure out where that's at. Eric, I recognize that, and I can't tell you what it is right now. Qui custodiet ipsos custodos.
Who watches the Watchers?
Who's watching the Watchers? Yeah. I gave a talk called Who's Watching the Watchers several years ago. That's why I recognize it. Good reference there. I don't know. I mean, is it possible for a government agency like this to do a decent job of trying to educate consumers about what's real and what's not?
I mean, I don't know. Yes, no. I mean, and maybe it's different here, right? Because I think in this, I don't want to get too political, but like our two-party system, it can get swung very widely. And I think maybe with a multi-party system, it might swing a little bit less, right? Because I have no idea though. I mean, there's definitely. This is what is the Ministry of Truth they have in 1984?
Yeah, right.
It's a little bit of that.
That was my thought, is the government is going to stop disinformation by telling us what is true and what we should believe, right? Like that's basically their charter, is to tell you these are the things you should believe and don't believe those things.
And so, I mean, when you get to the bottom of this article, because I was kind of curious. So what, I certainly know what we're dealing with here in the U.S. for this stuff, because I get to see it all the time. So what's Sweden got going on? At the bottom, they're talking about disinformation about the virus, including the terms like the plandemic, 5G conspiracy theory and sabotaging antennas, and disinformation narratives regarding the spread of the disease, its actual, because they know better, whatever mortality rate, and strategies to avoid getting infected. take a big tube of horse dewormer and send it.
But I'm sorry.
It sounds like they're dealing with the same stuff we are.
You're just reading my Facebook wall. That's what you do.
Well,
I
copied that off you.
The hard part is if it depends on how extreme you are, right? But if literally the government trying to crack down on these things proves that it's a government conspiracy in the first place.
Oh yeah, the people who believe it are going to believe it even more because the government's trying to prove it wrong.
Yeah,
so,
5G antennas are actually microwave weapons. Well, I mean, I hear if you're in a commercial jet about to land, that may be factual.
Literally just last week, mom in our homeschool group sent out this email about, hey, if 5G is that dangerous for planes, imagine what it's doing to your body. And it's like, it's not like there's no direct lie there, but it's like the logic just.
Are you a metallic plane with sensors reading over microwave channels?
Hey, don't body shame me.
Yeah.
So I have noticed something. Most traffic accidents occur when the sun is up. So obviously the sun causes traffic accidents and it's killing us all.
Oh yeah, it's like windshield wipers cause it to rain. Every single time windshield wipers are going, it's raining. So clearly we need to ban windshield wipers so it'll stop raining.
They used to use more of them here in Utah because we're in a drought. But
they used to have those like microwave antenna things kind of back in the day for some of like the longer range, but not terribly long range. My dad also always called them the elephant deterrents because wherever you see those, they don't have any elephants. Right?
There you go.
Point. Yeah. What's the joke? Do you know how? Oh man, what is the joke about elephants hiding in trees? Something I don't know. Some joke is a dad joke about elephants being really good hiding in trees, and the.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Have you ever seen an elephant hide in a tree?
Yeah, have you ever seen one? No,
because they're really good at hiding.
They're good at
it.
Yeah. Anyway.
Yeah, that's always the interesting argument because there is no proof. Somehow that actually makes it proof.
Yeah.
Right. Like the logic. All right.
We're in a challenging time right now. Like just worldwide. I think everybody knows that. It's we don't need to rant on it, but. It's frustrating.
So I read something that talking about challenging times. I mean, I was listening to a podcast by a couple of guys that were, they were both like assistant directors or something or other in CIA and various things at some point, right? And they're just talking historically they're talking about disinformation campaigns that like Russia likes to run, and they were talking about some historical things. I said, this isn't new. They've been doing this.
Yeah.
For decades. He said, but the difference is in the 50s, when they wanted to spread disinformation and get it into the U.S. news, they would scatter tons of articles around into little papers and news outlets around the world and hope that the Associated Press would pick one of them up, and then it would play in the United States and then therefore have the impact that they wanted of affecting U.S. citizens. They don't have to do that anymore. They create a Facebook account or an Instagram account and go to town. They don't have to do this anymore. They can take their old techniques that they've been practicing for decades and just directly get involved with everybody.
Well, and to that point too, like there was a reporter, a skilled reporter, whatever that means, but like their job was to do some of the research back in those days, right? Like they would do something, whereas now everyone is, and it takes, you don't have to read the article. You literally click share, and now it propagates.
Yeah. I've noticed Facebook pops up that like, you're sharing this and you haven't clicked on the link. Like, do you want to read the article first?
Yeah.
Which I think is kind of cool that they're doing that. I've often said, starting around the mid 90s, the whole development of a 24-hour news cycle where there's always this constant thing. And combined with the idea of social media has like we've given megaphones to all of those people that 20 years ago we would have just ignored. Like I remember growing up, there was a dude in our church, really well respected, and I remember him telling me all about chemtrails and the UN has these black sites where they're like massing troops and black army vehicles in the US for the coming takeover, and like this dude was like conspiracy theory crazy and everybody knew it. And we just laughed at him. Oh, ha. Yeah, move on. I'm not going to say his name on here, but some people, if anybody from where I grew up watches this, they're like, oh yeah, I know who you're talking about. But like nowadays, the problem is that guy, everybody knew to ignore him, right? He didn't like your voice, your message didn't get magnified unless you were rich or, really smart or, successful. Like we had social restraints on whose voice got magnified. And then social media said, screw that. Everybody's voice should be equal.
Well, and to that point too, it allows those people to find each other.
Yeah, I was about to make that.
Right? Now they can filter. I mean, and quite literally, like the social networks will sort of filter you into that direction. So now you find more of the same, which you're like, hey, now I have support. We've got, quite literally a group of people that agree with what I'm saying. I don't know.
Yeah, I have noticed that. So YouTube videos, I'll sit there and play something on YouTube while I'm dinking around at work. And because I like history and military history and stuff around that, I also find that I'm getting stuff popping up into my, hey, you might be interested in this. And you're like, that's freaking nutty stuff.
Yeah.
But there's overlap between some of these interests. And so they start dripping some of this stuff in. And, I'm sure we've all done it. You click on something on a subject and all of a sudden we've got 30 more recommendations related to this. And you're like, that was just kind of weird sounding. I just want to check it out.
Well, because I forget the article I was reading about this, but they were like, hey, you were searching for making your own baby food. And Facebook is like, which path are you? Are you the extreme leftist? Are you the prepper? Right. Yeah. And you're like, oh, we found, and it sort of steers you in your direction
into that. Yeah.
Create the fringe to some degrry. Let's talk. I'm tired of the conspiracy theory stuff.
Yeah.
The Grand Theft Auto, like the somewhat beauty of using Grand Theft Auto to find drug mules. I mean, I'm almost not even mad.
I know. I've always heard. You remember years ago, like 10 or 15 years ago, people were talking about, terrorists are going to use World of Warcraft to like communicate outside of the NSA's ability to monitor them. And we're like, we'll one up that. We'll create signals so they don't, whatever. Did you read? You want to summarize the article?
Yeah, I mean, so they're like they've got the real life cartel guys that are in their plane trying to find people who will, mule their drug. I mean, it's literally, it almost feels like you leveled up, like, right? Like, I'm so good at this game. I got a real job offer to do exactly what's in this game. Right?
Yeah,
I love it.
It's like playing what was the Ready Player One, right?
Yeah.
Like, I have found the hidden path inside the game.
There's a couple things I thought that was interesting about this too. Was they're citing an example of a young woman, it sounds like, who got pulled into this, and
which they didn't tell her she was doing drugs first, right? They said it was like
no, they didn't.
Or something?
They played the long game with her, where you're playing the game. You start to play with somebody regularly. You become friends. We start to chat in some other medium outside of the video game. In this case, it was Snapchat, and then he introduces the idea of, hey, we need somebody to run electronics across the border. And however it is that made sense to her, they floated, what was it, $2,000 to make a trip, depending on how big the load was.
Right.
And they even offer the vehicle that you're supposed to use, because coincidentally, they've packed it full of drugs in places that are hard to find, or at least, not in clear sight. And what else? Or in this case, they found it in the meth inside of the gas tank. And they asked her, did you think this was odd? And she's like, well, yeah. Even while I was taking the bus down there, I'm asking myself, what am I doing?
Just
now you are doing time
into Mexico, like that never.
Yeah, I mean, it's 2022, right? Like, what is odd anymore?
So yeah, this was what I thought was interesting. They're playing a long game with this. This isn't even a quick, hey, we're playing this game. You want to level up and do this in real life? No, it's let's be buddies, let's chat, let's.
Yeah, and to be clear, the article it was more than just Grand Theft Auto, right? Like they've got people. It's grooming, really. It's people building relationships and saying, hey, you're the type of person psychologically that might be likely to do this. And so make some relationships in Fortnite or Minecraft or whatever, and then go from there. Yeah, that was pretty cool. What next? I don't want to spend much on this, but last year we talked about the CSAM stuff with Apple. Do you guys remember that situation?
Yes.
Yep.
What just real quick, like 20-second summary of what they were trying to do.
So they were trying to, from what I recall, they were trying to auto detect the child abuse material. And so they implemented some technology to do that. People sort of ripped out that component and figured out how to fake it. And it would automatically look at multiple. You had to trigger so many before it got escalated to a human. And yeah, it's one of those tough situations where you're like, I get both sides, like legit both sides.
Yeah.
And it's I hate it.
Yeah.
I have to make this decision, right?
Yeah. We dove into the whole topic in a past episode. You can go back and watch that on YouTube if you want. But what I found interesting here is, Apple said, "Hey, we're doing this thing. We're going to start this," and I think everybody has forgotten. They quietly mentioned, we've been doing this for several years via email, and so it's not a big deal to start doing it in text messages now. Like, and everybody's like, "No, this really is a big deal." Wait, what? You've been doing it in email? But Apple finally, there was such a huge outcry that they backed off and said, "Okay, well, we're going to hold off on that." But what this article says is they've gone back through all of their support pages and removed any mention of the technology, any discussion about it at all. I don't know if that's maybe a conspiracy theory here that they're trying to cover it up and hide it, or if this is just somebody updating stuff and being like, "Yeah, that's not a thing anymore, so let's remove it." It's kind of interesting.
I could totally see somebody at Apple saying, hiring the intern and saying, your job is to go and remove all of this because people keep looking for it, and then it makes a news article.
Yeah.
A question I have, okay, they've backed on it. They've backed off. We've postponed this. Postponed isn't canceled. Indefinitely delayed.
Exactly.
So it could die and wither out there and not do anything with it, or they'll call it something else and resurrect it in a different way.
And they'll implement it quietly without telling anybody.
But to Tim's point, yeah, I'm torn on this because I don't like the idea of somebody scanning my device for whatever somebody decides to be distasteful, except this stuff is heinous. And I want to do bodily harm to the individuals who are participating in creating and doing this stuff.
Yep. All right. I don't want to go any further because I think we're all in the same opinion here, and there's not good answers there. But one last thing I wanted to get before we get to the end of the hour. So the Bored Ape Yacht Club, which I've heard of these. I wasn't familiar with the Bored Ape Yacht Club. I had to go look into it. Apparently, I'm not a big enough Paris Hilton fan. But like this whole thing with NFTs, they created these NFTs of apes, and all of these wealthy folks are saying, "Oh, let me buy this. Let me spend this money on this. Look how cool this is." And they really don't have a clue. I don't think anybody knows what an NFT really is. Anybody? Something about becoming a mushroom or something, or not possible to become a mushroom.
It's I can literally point at that thing and say, that thing's mine.
Yeah.
There's no fact checking. There's no anything. I think that's mine. We'll prove it. Well, I got this thing. Like, yeah, but you're not the artist. I'm like, yeah, but this
I bought it. Here's
says
here's a transaction on the blockchain saying that.
Yeah.
Which of the many blockchains?
Right. So here's what I think is hilarious, and this is why I wanted to talk about this article. The guy who these Bored Ape Yacht Clubs are going for tons and tons of money. I mean, like, just people are spending ridiculous amounts of money on these things, and the artist who created them got nothing. I mean, they asked him, and he's like, "Well, how much do you make?" And he's like, "Yeah, not a lot. It wasn't ideal." And so it's just funny that the whole point of this was, or at least one of the promises of NFTs when people start talking about it, is like, this gives smaller artists, or it gives people the ability to create something and sell it on their own and prove, who it was sold to, and, stuff like that. And I don't know. It makes me laugh every time I see it.
I heard something interesting about this. So this, it was a couple that is dead broke. Like they were saying, they were like negative in their bank account, and they had a couple of bucks literally in their pocket. They're about to lose their house. One of them created a series that thousands of NFTs, and these are computer generated type of stuff.
Yeah.
But they got something to create these ducks, and this couple, they pocketed $100,000, got their house out of bankruptcy, stuff like that, and you're like, huh, well, good for you guys, I guess. I don't know why anybody spent the money on it, but go you.
All right. I said that was the last one, but I'm going to wrap up on one more.
Okay, I got to go ahead. I got one for about 10 seconds after you.
Or go ahead. Go ahead, because mine should probably be
the Small Business Administration gives $3 million in grants for small businesses.
Yeah,
$3 million. Now, at first I read this, I thought it was going to be like for the city of Longview, $3 million. $3 million. Assume $10,000. That's 300 small businesses. Businesses. There are thousands and thousands and thousands of small businesses, and I'm like, $3 million. This seems like even Elon Musk could be like, bro, that's a rounding error.
This is like half of it. This is like half of an NFT, right?
Yeah, 4 apes.
Yeah, I had that same thought. I was like that's. I mean, we've applied for grants that are that much, like just for secure ideas, right? Like we've tried to do stuff with the small business. And
the irony is, it goes to the state government, and the state government then has to do something else. So take the $3 million, divide it by 50, now distribute that, and it's like,
well, hold on. They're going to have some administration costs, so it's probably about 60% that actually gets to the small. Oh,
you're generous. I say each small business gets about 47 cents.
Yeah, this sounds like one of these class action lawsuits. You were included in this, and you get your check for 25 cents.
Yeah.
I am going to the bank.
All right, guys. Well, it's top of the hour, and I know folks have to get back to work. So thanks so much for joining us, Tim. Glad you were finally able to figure out the technology stuff.
So I sent you a video, Sweaney. My monitor is dying in the middle of this. So it'll flicker out, and I'm staring at a black screen.
Oh, that's hilarious. That's awesome. Well, guys, it's been fun. Everybody that's listening, thanks. It's been a lot of fun. We do this the last Friday of every month. So sign up, come back, whatever March is. No, February. February is the next month. I'm public school trained. Like, what do I know? February 25th, it looks like. Also, check out our podcast, Professionally Evil Perspective. Jason and Tim, where can they find you if folks want to ping you or interact? Put you on the spot.
Occasionally I show up on Twitter, but not often because it's such a nasty mess. If you do, I don't know. You could just email me if you want, tadaka@gmail.com.
Yeah, you're also on LinkedIn, I think, too.
I am on LinkedIn if you want to use an official channel and get that evil big tech seeing it. Yeah.
Tim, where can people find you in Red Siege?
On the tweeters, at Tim Medin, email tim at redsiege.com because no one could spell Medin, or on our Discord, redsiege.com/Discord.
Awesome. Thanks, everybody. We'll see you next month.
See y'all.
Cool. Thanks, guys. Stop. How do I stop recording?
Oh, yeah. So wait, is recording over?
Nope, he's still recording.
No. Yeah, my monitor is